The Senate has passed a bill that prohibits sexual harassment of students in tertiary institutions.
The bill passed the third reading after a clause-by-clause consideration of the report from its Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters. According to the provision of the bill, any educator found guilty of committing an offense of sexual harassment is liable to conviction of 14 years imprisonment or a fine of 5 million naira or both. Lawmakers regard the bill as a landmark achievement as students can now feel safe and protected. Well, joining us now is gender advocate Princess Folashade Olabanji Oba. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Very well, thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Now, when you looked at or heard about the passage of the bill, I wonder how you felt. Is this an end of line for abusers, especially those in tertiary institutions?
I sure hope so.
Hope?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one thing to pass a bill and actually have it as a law. It's another thing for people to actually absorb and know that playtime is not, it's over. It's something that it was seen as a norm. It was so bad. And so it needs to hit home that time out, okay? It's something that we can no longer contain. So, but a good one for the Ninth Assembly. The narratives are changing, hope is there, and I sure hope that it will be the end of it.
But the point there is, in Nigeria, a lot of people have complained about passing a law on one hand and the potency or the efficacy of that law in implementation on the other hand. What concerns do you have in that regard, and what do you think should change?
Our own attitude, okay? And the law just makes it more effective, like, okay, there's a law and all that. But each and every one of us needs to be conscious that this is something that is no longer sustainable. And so it should go from that level down into, her different homes, because, the home makes the community, the self and all that. So, and the advocacy, fine, but educating the boys, the girls, that, this is not right, is something that affects us all, because if you really look at it, it was something that even the students felt it's just a normal way of life. And silence hides violence. They've kept quiet for so long. And I want to correct this. It's not only the girls that are abused, even the boys. But nobody talks about it, the stigmatization, and all that in the community. So it's a whole hell nine.
Yeah.
So you said in your earlier statement that this brings so much hope.
Yes.
I wonder how much of hope you see this bringing, especially for the abused.
Well, I want to believe that right now we're going through a major disruption. And with it also, you see the numbers going up. Whether they are being recorded or not, it's not everything that comes to news. But for the abused, it's another way of reassurance that structures are being placed, the law and all that. And even, I can give Lagos State a plus on that. If you really look at it, almost all the police stations have the gender desk. Things that you can easily get referrals, interventions, if you needed the assistance. So it just makes the job a lot easier. And then you can't give what you don't have, the understanding of the kind of rights that they also have with the passage of that law coming into place. I think it would really go a long way,
All right. The one other thing that people talk about is the need to voice out.
Yes.
Because that on the part of any victim, whether a girl or a boy, how much of that do you see this law enhancing?
Just what I said, it gives that support, like, we got your back, okay? You no longer have to live in fear, have all these things that, at least, if anybody does it, I mean, I would have probably expected a more steeper. I mean, 2 years is not.
All right.
Yeah.
Although the Senate feels this is a landmark achievement, you would recall that ASU, through its chairman, while this was being deliberated on, was saying that this bill was biased and that it could somehow be used to stigmatize lecturers, so to speak. So do you see institutions of higher learning cooperating to ensure that this bill is effective as it should be?
Well, I can understand the chairman's view, but truth be told, that this really is a landmark, okay? And I think he needs to go back to the lecturers and really let them understand that it is nothing against them. It is something that everybody needs to, control themselves, I'm talking discipline-wise, okay? And not see it as any for me. I mean, if you don't commit any crime or if you don't have any intention to commit any crime, you have nothing to be afraid of. So, understandable, he's doing his job. But the truth is, the situation is getting out of hand. And if there's nobody, policing the police here, if you really look at it, then, I mean, our children, we need to protect them. The job of any good government is to protect lives and properties. And, it goes beyond even the school system. When any child is victimized or, the trauma and all that goes on and on, beyond it. And we've got to set that standards that this is a no-no. It can no longer be accepted in our schools, be it public schools or private schools. So as an adult, you've got to act responsibly, take charge, and make sure you are accountable to whatever it is that you're doing. So that's very simple enough.
All right. What do you make of statements like, when it comes to issues of harassment, it's a norm within the tertiary institutions, where it's so common that people see it as a norm sometimes? Those are some of the comments we often hear before now. What kind of move do you see the institutions taking, even far beyond the issue of the courts and what the law is saying? What's going to change within the institutions now?
Even saying it's a norm is that we drop the value system. We drop the ball somewhere. It cannot be a norm. It's not normal. It's not sustainable. So the way it's being perceived or programmed, we need to quickly press the delete button in our system. This was there, okay, but no longer acceptable. So we all need to rise up above it.
But can we achieve that by a persuasion, trying to reorient? Is that going to work? Is that going to be as effective as when they know that there's going to be consequences?
We're not where we used to be. We're not where we need to be, but we're on our way there. Okay. It's part of it.
Speaking of consequences, 2 years or a 5 million naira fine, is this going to serve as a deterrent?
I probably would have wanted something a little bit.
How much? Or how many years?
If I had my way, but something strong enough to send a strong message.
Life imprisonment?
Imprisonment, yeah, definitely. But the length of time.
Life imprisonment?
No. Okay.
Something more stringent,
yes,
anyway.
Just something more stringent.
Okay.
Because it was becoming another pandemic, really.
Right.
Okay, and we needed to really take care of it. It's not. I mean, as a mother here, if you talk to, and even some of us mothers, we also grew up and all that. we were also exposed to some of those issues. And back then, you can't talk. You know, you're told to keep quiet. That's why I say silence hides it.
Yeah. Now, that brings me to the question of the role of parents at ensuring that laws like this are effective. You hear where victims say that perhaps their parents would not believe them when they say these things.
Yeah. Back to parenting. And I'm going to say the boys are just as affected, the boys, the girls, because even, I mean, we had situation to where the boys were complaining that even their male lecturers abused them as well. Now, in the home, we also need to raise our children to where they can communicate, where the trust level is also high. Because if your daughter or your son does not trust that you have their back, they'll be like, my mom doesn't care, my dad doesn't care. And before you know it, things are really out of hand.
All right.
So make sure where you're raising your children as your friends, where they can really relate. So if there's any issue, they can quickly pick it up.
Princess Folashade Olabanji-Oba, thank you so much for speaking
Thank you for
with us.
having me.
Thank you very much.